Hey, imagine you're setting up a new gaming rig or a workstation and you hear that buzzing hum of a power surge as the lights flicker. You're probably thinking, do I really need a fancy UPS? Maybe just a cheap strip will do. I've been chatting with a lot of friends who are torn between spending a few bucks on a simple surge protector and shelling out a few hundred on a full-blown battery backup. It's a legit dilemma because you don't want to waste money on something that sits idle most of the time, but you also don't want your saved game to disappear the second the grid hiccups. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The CyberPower PR2000RTXL2U is a 2000VA2000W UPS that tries to strike a balance between raw capacity and smart features. At first glance it's a lot of power on paper, but the real question is whether that power translates into everyday peace of mind for a gamer or a creator who runs a multi-monitor setup, a high-end GPU, and a bunch of peripherals. I dug through the spec sheet, read the technical notes, and scoped out a few forum threads where people actually ran this thing in a real home office. Let's start with who this unit actually makes sense for. If you have a high-performance gaming PC that draws 600,800 watts at peak, a fast-charging external SSD, a couple of monitors, plus a router and maybe a streaming encoder, you're already flirting with the limits of a typical 1-200 VA UPS. The PR2000RTXL2U's 2000W rating gives you enough headroom to keep everything alive for roughly 5 to 7 minutes during a blackout, which is just enough time to hit save and quit or switch to a UPS-powered monitor and finish a match without losing progress. Those minutes feel especially valuable when you have a gaming marathon planned and you're deep into a raid. The last thing you want is a sudden you have been disconnected screen. On the other side of the coin, if you're a casual gamer who only plugs the console and a monitor into a basic surge strip, you're probably overpaying. The unit size 2U rack tower means it takes up more space than a standard tower UPS, and the 8 NEMA 520R outlets are all full-size, so you'll need to use a separate power strip for those smaller plugs. In a tight desk setup, the footprint can feel a bit bulky, so people who want a sleek, minimalist look might skip this. One of the most practical strengths is the Smart App integration. CyberPower's Power Panel app lets you monitor battery health, load, and runtime from your phone or laptop. In practice, this means you can see at a glance whether the UPS is operating at 30% load or if the batteries have dropped below 80% capacity after a year of use. I've seen a few users mention that this remote monitoring saved them from a surprise failure because they could schedule a battery replacement before the unit actually died on them. The app isn't a gimmick, it genuinely adds a layer of preventive maintenance that you don't get with many lower-priced units. Another unique feature is the Rotatable, Tiltable LCD panel. Most UPSs have a fixed screen that you have to stare at from a certain angle, but this one swivels, which is helpful if you're hanging it on a rack in a server closet or if you're using the tower mode on a desk. The display provides real-time wattage, battery charge, and estimated runtime. In a real-world scenario, imagine your power goes out while you're live streaming. You glance at the LCD, see you have about 6 minutes left, and you have enough time to switch your encoder to a backup laptop running on battery while the UPS keeps your main rig alive. That quick visual cue can be the difference between a smooth handoff and a chaotic scramble. Now, let's talk about the hidden trade-offs. The PR2000RTXL2U uses a Sinewave output, which is great for sensitive electronics like high-end GPUs and PC power supplies that expect clean power. However, Sinewave UPSs tend to be more expensive, and the internal transformer can generate a faint hum that some users notice during quiet gaming sessions. It's not a deal-breaker, but if you're sensitive to background noise, you might need to place the unit farther away from your desk. Battery runtime is often a point of contention. While the specs suggest up to 10 minutes at half load, real-world testing on a 700W gaming rig usually yields around 4 to 5 minutes before the battery dips below a safe threshold. If your goal is to keep the system up for an hour, you'll need an external generator or a longer-lasting battery bank, which means the UPS alone won't cover all use cases. In short, think of this unit as a grace period manager rather than a full-time backup generator. The built-in AVR, automatic voltage regulation, is another practical perk. It smooths out minor sags and spikes without dipping into battery power, essentially extending your battery life for larger outages. People who live